And welcome back to another night edition of Fully Equipped. I believe this is going to become a regular thing, boys. And this week, when I say boys, I mean Uncle Gene and RB live from Pebble. For everybody that out there that now knows, hopefully you know, Fully Equipped is now on YouTube, and we are uploading all of the episodes to the new Fully Equipped YouTube page. So if you're watching this, you're seeing RB and Uncle Gene in frame together at Pebble. I'm very jealous, boys. How we doing?
We are great. We are really great.
We're not staying together, by the way. We're. I
This is a couple retreat.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Come on, there's only so far, but we want to show that to our regular listeners out there that two opposite sides of a discussion can get together and break bread. So
and maybe drink some wine.
And some wine, which may be coming shortly. If my brother comes into frame because he has no idea that we're recording this, I may have to just wave him over just to get a little wine, just to keep you going.
100%. Gotta keep Uncle Gene lubricated. Anyway, all right. Well, we're gonna get to the Pebble talk, but there was a lot going on last week. PGA show, RB and Uncle Gene were both there, and listen, I think we need to at least recap the PGA merchandise show because I'll be frank. I have blasted the PGA merchandise show in the last couple of years. Me personally, I don't see the value. And I don't know. I talked to some people there on the grounds. It sounds like the show's making a comeback. Maybe I should change my tune. What say you guys? What was the scene like in Orlando?
It was busy. I feel the same sentiment from a lot of people. The floor was busy. It was a couple, I would say 2019 was like the last one where it was like, it felt more spread out. And they've definitely, from like an organizational perspective, cut down on floor space, like 100%. Like it is, I would say it's probably 2/3 what it was like 5-6 years ago. But what is in that floor space is all like really good stuff. Like they tried to fill it with pickleball a couple of years ago. And yes, there was like a pickleball court there still. And like, I know nothing about pickleball, so I can't comment if it was cool or not. I have no idea. But as far as golf and what we concern ourselves with, there was a lot of people. I think a lot of people thought that it was a good place to be that week. I was only there for the Wednesday. It's always the busiest day, the first day after demo day. Floor was packed. It was great to see the way that they had organized the show. There was an area for new product that was specifically showcased. The OEMs had their own spaces. Clothing companies had their own spaces. And then where Gene was at the end of the range, like that was another total space on its own. And considering how many times I've been to the show at this point, which I think it's probably 4 or 5. I mean, it's probably at 5 now. It was busy. It felt busy. It felt like there was a bit of a buzz. People were excited, and whether that's because, to be very frank, business is booming, as they say. But there definitely seemed to be a positive direction. And another thing too, I think there was a lot of people who were like really serious about this sounds really bad, or a phrase that I don't like not about growing the game, because I don't think that's a fair sentiment, but there was a lot of people there who like focused on things outside of just like trying to sell people something, about whether it be organizations or different presentations about bringing people into golf or those kind of things. Like there did seem to be a lot of that as well, which I think is something that probably was lacking, before that I'd seen it this year.
Well, and it's interesting getting feedback because, to your point, Jay, well, everybody, especially a lot of the, exhibitors, a lot of times they can be doom and gloom about, oh, is this worth it, et cetera. And a lot of them were really surprised that I talked to, and they're like, attendance is up. And it's kind of like the economy as a whole. Everybody's been waiting for this recession, right? And there's just been this recession, and it's probably been going on for 2 or 3 years. And all the economic data keeps coming back saying, no, we're not in a recession. And, people are purchasing. And it's the same thing with golf. Everybody keeps waiting for us to return to the kind of the median or the mean, meaning, just to get back to historical averages. And we're not. I mean, golf is still booming. The one thing that I noticed that's really interesting is the show seems to be de-emphasizing equipment and emphasizing technology more. There were so many
Interesting.
launch monitor
There were
companies.
so many. Yes, I didn't say that. Yes, that's a very good point.
So many launch monitor companies, and automated
Does that seem like that space is big enough to give everybody a piece of the pie?
There's going to have to be a shakeout. There has to be, but everybody wants to get into it, and also golf entertainment. Callaway's top tracer booth was bigger than their equipment booth, to show their top tracer technology. So golf entertainment, simulators, I mean that's big business, and there's a strong emphasis. It's still kind of interesting. I think is this the third year TaylorMade has not been there?
At least
They're not coming back. They're not coming back.
I think it's probably 4 or 5, at least 5 years. Actually, I've only been to the show once when TaylorMade was there, and that would have been close to a decade ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's not, and this is no offense to TaylorMade. We love TaylorMade, but like nobody missed them. But everyone, from an equipment perspective, to your point, people know what's going on with TaylorMade. Like they don't need a booth, and like I talked to some reps from some OEMs. I will not mention any names because this is more than one, and I'm not going to put anyone under the bus here. But they were like, we're here because some of our pros are here. It's a good time to get face-to-face. But, like, we're not really selling anything. We've already sold them everything. Like, we've already done our sell-ins, whereas the clothing companies, they were doing bookings for the fall.
Right.
They've got booths set up. They've got appointments set up. They are doing bookings. So it is this unique situation where all of these companies, and I did talk to someone on the record, like Cobra. They were like, look, our booth's different. It's more open. It's more experiential because we want people to like experience our brand, but we're not here actively selling. We want to showcase stuff, but no one's walking around booking appointments to like sell 50 putters. Like the goal is just to have people come in and experience it and have fun and like see what the product's all about. If you haven't seen it already, because that's why we're here.
It's almost like it's becoming, instead of a sales thing, a marketing. I'm thinking. I swear. So Foresight hired me to bring my mobile robot. They have introduced the GC Quad Max, which I teased a couple of pods ago with RB because it has a swing training aspect. You don't need to hit a ball, so you can do speed training on it. And so I was able to highlight a lot of the technology of the GC Quad Max. It's a really interesting unit. It's a significant upgrade, and it's worth looking at. But the thing that I got a kick out of was I must have had 50 people come up to me with their iPhones. Hey, I'm so-and-so from something. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are. And, here's 30 seconds with the robot. And I'm like, how many people you got really following you and watching this? But I mean,
we know some people love the robot.
Yeah, well, people love the robot because, it's something different in a sea of, kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But what was more fascinating was it seems like, to what RB was saying about Cobra, it's almost like a marketing exercise at this point to get the word out, to get, the brand out so that, people are interested and it's at the, the front of their mind when they start making their purchasing decisions in the next month or two.
Yeah. For the most part, I don't think that you see anything new, and I'm speaking specifically to the gear front. You don't really see a whole lot new. I know, although RB, you did post a couple of pictures. Ping, I know, had some forthcoming irons that were on the show floor. So there is a little bit of new, and I think that's mainly the reason, if you're a journalist, if you cover gear for a living like we do, that's maybe the reason why you go. But let's be honest, the stuff that you saw on the floor, I saw it at Ping headquarters. So
Well,
it's out there. But I think to your point though, and it's a good one, maybe what people are coming to the show for is changing. And maybe that's why I feel like I'm changing my tune a little bit is, it just feels like if I were to go to the show now and RB, you were there, and I think you've kind of said a little bit to this point, which is it's more to just see the people. It's more to catch up in person. We correspond with a lot of these folks via email and Zoom calls. It's not so much to get product downloads. By the time RB shows up in Orlando, I mean, he and I have already cranked out a whole bunch of write-ups. We're deep into prepping for club tests in the magazine. We're on to producing and getting things ready for Robotic Insights. It's just the cadence has changed. It's no longer that we're going to the PGA show to see new product for the very first time. We've already seen it. We know what it's doing. There's still a value to it. Don't get me wrong. I just think that maybe from my perspective, it's like I need to stop looking at it just simply as like, what's the value of going to Orlando? There is a value there. It's just
well,
it's changed for somebody like me, whereas maybe others are getting to experience the gear for the first time, and that's pretty awesome.
I totally agree with you. I don't think it's about the gear. I think it's about running into people in hallways, running into people, at the bar at the hotel across the way, and just catching up and getting kind of, industry information. And you also get people that are out of their kind of environment, so you guys jump on a Zoom call like I do, or you go to an HQ or, an R&D facility. And when you're sitting there one-on-one with people, number one, you get to know them and you're establishing relationships. But number two, you get some good dirt sometimes, as to what's really going on. And it's, that's what I find. And I'm always like, surprised at how, I mean, telecommunications via the internet is amazing, but there's something about being in person and just seeing someone's reactions, and you're able to uh, kind of, there's an intimacy there that information is exchanged more freely than it is in other forums, I found.
Yeah. Was there anything that you saw during your time in Orlando that impressed you, surprised you, something that you didn't expect to see when you showed up?
Again, it's not gear. Like
But
thing is, like,
let's look at like non-gear, RB. I
yeah,
mean,
like,
was there anything else that like piqued your interest?
Puma's got some really cool shoes. Like they got some new, like classically styled stuff that is going to appeal to more of the traditionalists, which I don't think we've really ever seen before. But then they got like a chunky dad shoe with spikes in it, and I'm like, these are pretty sweet. And I think um, saw the Malbon booth. They were doing some bookings. They had some like limited edition putters. I don't know who made them, but it was like interesting to see.
Did they have a Jason Day line out yet?
No, not that I saw. I
With
mean, I
the
was in there
'90s
for like 4 or
cardigans
5
and
minutes.
the Jinkos and the whole shebang?
I spent a few minutes in there. I didn't like talk too much. I just kind of like browsed and took a couple pictures. But I do think that like golf, and I say this as someone who, smugly or non-smugly or very self-aware, belongs to a country club with a dress code where like I can't wear certain things, and it's like, man, that's like half my wardrobe. Like I'm being serious, and I
Yeah.
hope some of that, and you know what, I hope some of this does filter down, because it is one of those things where I hope that there is like I understand tradition, I understand like etiquette and all of these things, but there is a point where there has to be some merging of two things. And I would say like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would say a lot of the clothing geared towards like younger people or even women were, let's say, on the borderline of like, I don't want to say inappropriate, but like, pushing the envelope like really far. And it's been pulled back a little bit. And I've seen brands that have really again, I said stuff to my wife. I was like this approaches women's fashion very differently than you've enjoyed using. Like you've like interacted with golf stuff, because what you would see on Instagram isn't something you could actually really wear to the golf course. Someone is wearing that because of they're getting paid to wear it, and then they're looking to get clicks on Instagram. Be very very self-aware of that stuff. But to me, I think the idea of like there is this evolving trend. Now, I say it from the standpoint of quote unquote a younger person who's nearly 40 in the golf industry, right? So what does that look like for someone who is actually 20 or 25 or 30, who is trying to get into the game, who wants to approach the game and have a lot of fun and just do things a little bit differently? And I believe that that's really starting to change. I hope that it's starting to change, because the stuff that's the big baggy or the traditional golf clothing, it has a place. It always has a place, just like a tuxedo always has a place as far as formal attire is concerned. Like, no offense, you can't wear a tuxedo. At some point, you're never going to be able to wear a tuxedo T-shirt to a State of the Union dinner, right?
You never know. Maybe.
Never know. Someone might.
Never know.
Pull it off. But I just think there is this movement of like forward that's happening. It's slow. It's golf. It's always going to be slow. I don't want it to be slow, but I want to see change. I want to see this development of things being a little bit more approachable. And side note, I got this sweet Seamus head cover that looks like the Costco logo from their booth. I went and got it for myself. I paid cold hard cash for that thing. And, seeing stuff like that is just, it's fun to be there in person and know like, hey, I was at the show. I was able to buy that. It's pretty neat.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think the overall, the consensus here is that the show is changing and it's moving in a good direction. And I like to see that. I don't think that I want us to live in a world where the PGA merchandise show isn't a thing. I think there was a point during COVID where I think everybody wondered if the show was going to come back, and if so, what would it look like? Because when it did come back, it was not the same show. The juice was gone. A lot of manufacturers were pulling out. You weren't quite sure who was coming back. So it's nice to see the PGA merchandise show having a little bit of a resurgence, and hopefully that continues going on through this year into the next show next year. All right, a couple of things that I did want to plug before we talk about Lexi Thompson and Maxfli golf balls. I can't believe we're going to talk about Maxfli on the podcast. But two things. One, so you've heard us talk about the 2024 club test that golf does. We have our proving ground, which is our player testing, and then we also have our robotic testing. And we've started to release this week all of our proving ground write-ups. We'll have a couple left. I know RB's going to be penning one on his testing experience with PXG for the following week. But we have up on the site right now Mizuno. We'll have Zexio, TaylorMade, Callaway, Ping, all basically a lot of the major players all getting. Oh, there's Gene in his wine, and RB with a beer. I was about to say if RB's drinking wine, I was gonna be a little bit surprised. He seems like a beer man to me. But anyway, go check out our Proving Ground write-ups. It's where our editors and writers offer their takes on testing all the latest gear. We still believe in player testing feedback. We're not emphasizing it as much as we used to, because we believe that the robotic insights are extremely important. And again, they offer an unbiased look. But we have a wide range of handicaps, and it is really fun to see our testers offer those takes and pick out products that, I mean, look, Connor Federico, when he went to Ping, and I got a lot of shit for this, and maybe it was just for the flagrant headline. Connor gained, if you're looking at total, I think he gained 44 yards on his previous gamer driver by switching to the Ping G430 Max 10K. And I did highlight in the story, for those of you that didn't just read the headline, Connor was at 4,200 spin with the driver. And it wasn't like he was playing an old driver. But it is fun to have these stories because it highlights not just the importance that new gear can play in your life, but the importance of getting fit. And I think that's one of the things that you're going to see from a lot of our testers, not just Connor, but a few others. They learned a lot about their gear. I mean, James Colgan is another example. One of our big game James from golf.com. He had a putter that was like, I think it was 7 degrees aloft. He had no idea that it was just completely jacked up. So again, the importance of getting fit, and you can learn more about all the new gear on our Proving Ground write-ups.
And to the point of being fit, like I know I think it was posted today, Tuesday. So if anyone's seeing this, like I hear golfers make excuses all the time, and I broke down on the website of like why people make excuses, the most popular excuses that I've ever heard, and why they're all wrong.
Yeah.
And why you need to go out there and just better understand your gear. And Connor's the best example because look, he's a mid-level handicap. He has access to equipment. He has access to like getting fit, but he just really never went through the process. And making assumptions about your golf game and knowing more about your golf game while having a third party look at it. And it's the same with, you'll hear it in my fitting as well. When I talk about it is I fit and build golf clubs. Like I know my ins and outs of golf clubs, but I'll tell you, I love getting behind in front of a launch monitor where someone else is doing the feeding me of equipment. Very similar to the fitting that I did with Aaron Dill. I didn't look at grinds. I didn't look at shafts. And the goal was to figure out what was best for me. And at the end of the day, I found out that in most cases, a lot of the stuff that I had was exactly what I needed, but there was a particular club that needed a different grind. And to me, that was the showcase of not looking at the product, not looking at it and saying, wow, I didn't think that because of this preconceived notion. And I deal with a lot of golf equipment. So imagine with someone who really has very little knowledge of their own equipment, what that can do. And I think that's why fitting is just so important. And we continue to focus on why robot data is applied to fitting, why player feedback is obviously in a fitting environment. And all of that comes together to help inform golfers to make decisions, but also still hopefully push them in the direction of finding a fitter they can work with and feel confident about their gear.
To real world it. So my brother who's up here with me, and he's in the background pouring his drinks right now. So shout out to Paul. Thank you. We played Pacific Grove golf links today, and I think one of the guys was in his mid to late 70s and the other guy was in his early 80s. But they were out there hustling, they were walking, and when they teed off, the ball didn't get more than 4 feet off the ground. Like, a really smoking tee shot got 10 or 12 feet off. And I'm not, unless somebody asks me what I do or probes me, I'm just not going to say anything. But I just walked
Gene
by.
did the do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? But I walked by and looked in their bag, and one of the guys had a 9-degree lofted driver, and the other guy had it. And I mean, these guys, they're swinging at like 65, 70 miles an hour, right?
Just shake them, shake some sense into them. Tell them what the hell they're missing.
But I was telling my brother about this. I said, they don't know any better. That's my point, is they are just, this is a driver, and this is the driver that you tee off with. And, I was telling my brother, I'm like, they should be playing. And there are some drivers out there that you can get that are up to like 14 degrees, right? But they needed, somewhere between a 3 and a 5 wood to get the ball in the air. And the game would be so much more enjoyable for them because they'd hit the ball another probably 20 yards further. And it was really wet out there. So
we've done that test, Gene.
Yeah, I know.
With your robot driver versus 3-wood. And
it's just fascinating to see, like we're doing a great job with information and we're doing a great job educating, but man, there's a long way to go.
What's the old saying? You can lead a horse to water,
but you can't make them drink.
I don't, but like for these guys, I don't think they get the information, and they belong to the Pacific Grove Men's Club, and they played 2 to 3 times a week. And, I mean, they're technically sicko golfers as far as, but that just like their knowledge of equipment it was just fascinating to watch. And I think that's more common than not as to, what this is. But it's the same thing with fitting and things like that. They will spend the money to play and be out there. But, I looked at all their gear and it was probably 15, 20 years old, and that's fine. I don't care the age. It's just get the right gear that helps you, to make the game a little bit more enjoyable.
We'll get to some takes on amateur gear at Pebble in a minute.
Yeah, I'm sure RB does have a couple of spicy ones. The other thing that I wanted to plug, if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, go back and listen. I'm biased, but it is a really fun, free flowing interview with Scotty Cameron. Thank you to those that have reached out and all the positive feedback that you've sent my way on that interview. I had nothing to do with it. I just asked the questions, but Scotty told some incredible stories. We've tried to plug a few of those a little bit more than others, but the one about Tiger and the putter, the Terrellium putter that he kind of moved the neck back on that Tiger had bent during the 99 Buick at Torrey. Listen, I've heard a lot of stories over the years, but not as many as Gene. But I've been grateful to have been in the room with a lot of really important people, not just tour pros, but the guys that have actually made the clubs and the reps that have worked on the gear with the pros. I don't know, man. That story Scotty told might be my favorite, and that's saying something. It was so good. Anyway, go listen to the podcast. If you, that's my way of teasing it heavily. Go listen to last week's pod with Scotty Cameron. It's well worth your time. It's over 90 minutes, but listen to it on your ride to and from work for a couple of days.
I used to have an hour drive to work. That was a full podcast anyway. That was a good one. So I liked it. I actually listened to it on the way to the airport because I didn't hear it. I liked it, as a golf nerd. I was curious to hear it. You didn't give me any inside access to early listening, so I just listened to it when it dropped.
Oh, I need those. We need those listens, man. Even if it's us just patting our own podcast, we need those listens. Anyway, all right, we're gonna save Pebble towards the end of this pod because I do want to discuss Lexi Thompson and her new golf ball deal with Maxfli. So, I mean, when was the last time do you think before this week that Maxfli was relevant? Back in the 90s?
I said daily because I know we actually had this discussion kind of behind the scenes, but daily, I worked golf retail, so that was like whatever, a long time ago now. And the Maxfli had the noodle for a long time, and then they ended up with the Maxfli Fire and the Maxfli Fire Tour. And the Maxfli Fire Tour, which according to every source that I was able to talk to and understand, was the Maxfli Fire Tour was the same ball Daly used. It was a urethane covered golf ball, but what was very interesting is it was a mid-level price point golf ball. So I think at the time it was about $35 Canadian. So in the States, that was probably like $29 or $29.99 at the time, when most, let's say a Pro V1 was $39.99. So that was a good value golf ball. And we played those a lot. A lot of the guys I worked with, big box store, we played those golf balls because they were cheaper. We're all kids working retail. Like, it was a golf ball that spun, it went far, but it was cheaper than the other options. And it was a really fun golf ball to use. I actually think I have a couple kicking around in my shop somewhere.
It sounds like the Precept Lady.
No, it was 3-piece though. The Lady was only ever 2-piece, right? Like,
but I'm just saying, like, it's one of those golf balls where it feels like it was
a cult golf ball.
You're getting some performance out of a golf ball that, it's not the high. You don't have to pay a whole bunch for it. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and so that, like, to me, that was like the last time Maxfli did anything, and that was kind of it. And then it became, I know Golf Works, like WORKS, the golf equipment supply company. They would sell their golf bags, And I think it was the reason they do that is because Dick's owns the Maxfli brand now, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But they also bought Golf Works as well as a component supply company. So I think they use that company for distribution to their stores for their repair shops as well as to consumers as well. And we have a version of that in Canada. So like you can find Maxfli stuff online, but you can't find it in any other stores unless you cross the border and go to like a Dick's Sporting Goods. But that's it. Like they didn't have anything else. And that, I mean, it was kind of like daily, and they tried really hard, and then they just kind of fizzled out. But you can still buy the noodle. But the noodle, which used to be the Maxfli noodle, is now just the noodle because
It's not the same. It's not the same ball.
TaylorMade owned, for those who are listening, like
doesn't have the fairy dust anymore.
It's gone. The fairy dust is all gone. But yeah, so the Noodle brand is owned by TaylorMade. 2-piece golf ball sold in like 36 packs, and it was the Maxfli noodle, but they sold the Maxfli brand to Dick's Sporting Goods, but they kept the Noodle sub brand as its own brand. And I'm sure, as far as TaylorMade concerns, that golf ball makes a ton of money for a lot of people.
Gene, do you test, or did you test the Maxfli ball that Lexi's playing? Did they bring? Yeah, you did. I kind of figured you did.
Okay. So let me give you a little background. This to me isn't shocking at all. Maxfli is one of the kind of the secrets in the industry, in that people just think, oh, Maxfli, it's a House Dick's brand. It's not. They have their own R&D team dedicated. And I'm going to be honest, they've spent a lot of money with me over the years making sure that these balls are right. And there's a guy named Dave Michaels who is in charge of research and development, and he is very, very dedicated to making sure that these balls compete and are equivalent to the top balls in each category. And he succeeded, and they have made good golf balls. The Maxfli line is pretty extensive within Dick's, and they've made good golf balls from top to bottom for years. And I had heard things that, the next step in the process, kind of for legitimacy, was going to be to get a tour player. So this is not surprising to me at all. And it's not surprising that she signed and is playing it, because the golf ball tests as well as some of the top golf balls in the industry. So it's, I think that this will cause people to look at Maxfli a little closer. And when they do, they're going to be surprised by what they find. In that these are performance golf balls without a doubt.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's all I've been hearing about when I ask insiders about Maxfli. The quality's good, quality control, is really tight.
Yep.
And the performance is there. But again, to your point, which is the exact same one that I would have made, Gene, which is people look at Maxfli and there's this stigma of it being a big box brand.
Yeah.
And so automatically you just discount it. You go back to the brands that you know, and you would never dare play a Maxfli golf ball. But I think that what Maxfli is trying to do is brilliant, because they're bringing back the golf ball with, like, they didn't go to the PGA Tour and try and pick off some big name. They would have had to spend a lot of money to do that. Why not get one of the big names on the LPGA Tour? At the end of the day, we've said this how many times, guys, on this pod. If you want to look at a setup that you should be playing, or what kind of gear should you consider playing, you should look at what the ladies are playing. Look at what the LPGA Tour pros are playing. Those girls could kick your ass on a golf course.
100%.
But their gear setups are more closely aligned with the average recreational, like, single-digit handicapper, because they're similar swing speeds. So look at what the LPGA pros are playing. I mean, yeah, sure, it's fun to look at what the PGA Tour guys are playing. We do it every week. But this is a really smart move on their part, because if you look at it closely, it's like, all right, it's a LPGA golfer, but I mean, Lexi, if you're on the higher end of the speed spectrum for a recreational golfer, you're probably swinging it closer to like Lexi speeds. And if she's liking this golf ball, maybe that gets you interested in it. I mean, there's been enough chatter about the quality of these balls. Now you're attaching a pro to it, and it's not just any pro. This is a really fascinating story because when I found out about it prior to the announcement, I thought, really, Lexi Thompson? And the first thing that I thought about was, man, people are going to see this and they're going to think this is Bubba Watson and Volvic all over again. And that whole deal just blew up in everybody's face. Bubba stopped playing the ball before the deal was even over. I heard all kinds of stories about the inconsistencies that he was seeing, and he had to go back to his Pro V1. This is not the same story. Lexi has vetted this ball thoroughly. Even like, look, Alan Bastable, who in his day job for golf.com, he runs the show for our website. But Alan did a story where he spoke to Brett Falkoff, who is Lexi's agent. He's been Lexi's agent since 2020. And he laid out the story of how this all happened. So Lexi's deal with Bridgestone, she's been a Bridgestone staffer for a while now. Her deal was supposed to come up at the end of last year. And Maxfli approached Brett and said, hey, would Lexi be interested in exploring a deal with Dick's Sporting Goods to play the Maxfli ball? And Brett is on record as saying he told them, absolutely not. There is no way that we're even going to consider playing this golf ball. And lo and behold, Lexi gets a hold of some golf balls. And I mean, Brett said it, like, we were all in shock. It was better than anything else that she tested. It was a nice match. It was a good agreement. I'm sure she's getting paid well. And that's sort of set in motion this whole deal with Lexi Thompson and Maxfli. I think she finished 16th in her first start with the new ball. She said it performs really well in the wind. It's actually even a little bit lower spinning into the wind, which she really likes. So I think this is, we were looking for it. We were looking for that one gear signing that was going to actually make a little bit of noise. And I told you there wasn't a lot out there. This is it. Lexi Thompson and Maxfli is going to be that big gear story to start 2024.
And to that point, and this is what I think goes underappreciated. And like, look, I don't mean to sound like it's going to make you sound like an idiot, but like, I'm out here walking the range at Pebble this week. There are 70 players in the field. Okay, so it's a small field, top players in the world. Now look, I can walk around as someone who watches golf, pays attention to golf, knows the names of professional golfers, and I can go, who's that again? And I got to walk down the range, and I got to look at the front of the bag, and I'm like, okay. Because first of all, a lot of male golfers on the PGA Tour do not market themselves. They don't even use social media. They don't use social media to like present themselves. They don't put themselves out there. They're there to play golf. They take the golf as like the thing that they do, and they don't worry about anything else. And to that point, sure, it's great. Like, you make a great living playing golf. But beyond that, like, you are not a name that like anyone is going to know. Like, my dad, who watches golf, he always asks me questions about on the weekend. Like, he would go, who won this past week in Hawaii? And I'm like, oh, Chris Kirk. Like, he's a legit tour player. He's won 6-7 times. Like, really good player, right? No idea. Like, he doesn't know who Chris Kirk is, right? Most and a lot of average golf fans know who Lexi Thompson is. And if they don't know, even like, they couldn't pick her out of a lineup, they've heard the name. So now you've got a recognizable name using a new product. That is a story. From a marketing perspective, they are getting way more value paying her X amount of dollars than they would get paying a 25 to 75 or even 50 to 100th ranked player in the world whose agent's going to ask for a lot of money to switch to this product. And yes, it might do well in like a story, but at the end of the day, how much further is that going to go, right? If this person never wins and has, because we talk about the tour all the time, right? There's not as much turnover rate at the top, and that kind of lower level, there's a lot of people that just kind of float in and out. They're very, very good. I'm not saying they're not good, But like Harris English could walk through the crowd at the Pebble Beach and like people were going, they wouldn't even know who he is unless he had a name tag that said, "I am Harris English. I play ping golf clubs." Like, no offense. It's just the case. It's just a fact. That's all it is. And like I come from someone who's in golf, and I have people who like fans on the range come up to me and they can't see the front of the bag and they'll go, "Who's that?" How does that talk when it comes to marketing? People know who Lexi Thompson is. People recognize the name. She played in an LPGA Tour event last year. Or she played in a PGA Tour event, nearly made the cut. Like people know who she is. They're getting great value, and not only that, they make a good product. So.
It is a brilliant marketing move by Maxfli. Again, this is not all about the marketing; it's about the product, and it is a really good golf ball. And now it makes you wonder if Lexi wins, if she does win with this golf ball.
It's great because she has.
I think you start to see some other pros start to consider it. I even think you could maybe see some tour pros. I mean, that's what they were going for. There have been some interesting stories about what Maxfli was trying to do to drum up interest in the ball out on tour. They ended up signing Lexi instead of trying to go the heavier marketing route. But yeah, I could see some other players kicking the tires on the Maxfli ball if she wins with it, or hell, even if she just starts playing really well and starts top 10 in every week.
Well, I mean the important takeaway here that a lot of people their eyes are opening to is Maxfli has an R&D department within Dick's, and they devote a lot of time and resources to testing and making sure that these golf balls are highly, highly competitive with everything else. And, I know because Dick's is a massive organization, and when they make claims, these claims have to pass legal. And I mean, so they don't cut corners. That's what I'm trying to say. They, when they have an objective and they reach the objective and then they state what the performance characteristics are, you can take that to the bank. And I just think that there's going to be, especially if Lexi wins or, she starts making a splash with this golf ball, there's going to be a little bit of a paradigm shift as to, wow, Dick's actually makes really good golf balls in the Maxfli brand. And that's going to be wild to watch, because it's like, it's like the Kirkland story. It's just coming from a different angle that we're not used to seeing. And it I don't know, it makes the golf ball world a little bit more exciting.
Makes the gear world more exciting, I think. Yeah. A little bit of a contrarian in amongst the gear blue bloods.
It just shows you that there's different ways to approach it, and I won't go into like proprietary details, but who they work with, who they design, they're doing stuff that's right up there with the big boys, and it's that's it. But it's been this secret, people have known about it, but because they haven't had that marketing splash, everybody just goes, "Oh, Maxfli, that's a house brand for Dick's." And I'll tell you this, I test a lot of house brands, and they literally are, some manufacturer in China, they'll just stamp their name on it and they'll come and test, and they'll be like, it's a roll of the dice. Like if it performs well, hey, they run with the test results. If it doesn't perform well, they don't talk about it. So, I mean, I do that all the time, but this is a completely different story. This brand has a R&D department behind it and dedicated resources.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, the R&D team, because I think there were probably a lot of people out there who were assuming that this was just some random golf ball that they picked up out of Asia and stamped a Maxfli logo on it and called it a day. It is not that. All right, Pebble time. One of my favorite weeks of the year. I do not like the Pro-Am part. It's
not there anymore.
It seems like it seems like an absolute beating for the guys. I think that's why now being a signature event, you get the opportunity to see some real quality golf there this week at Pebble. RB, you were out there today. Gonna be out there tomorrow. What's the take? You mentioned a couple of gear changes, but then you also mentioned some of the AM stuff, which has me interested.
Yeah. So as far as gear is concerned and like Pebble Beach is concerned, I've been someone who has repeatedly said you could play X golf course for like 1,000 times, or you can play Pebble Beach one time. Look, I'm not going back on that take. Okay, just because I'm here, I'm not going back on that take. But I will say it is a very cool piece of property. It's a very cool place to walk around, similar to. And my wife asked me this actually today, kind of walking around the golf course. She's like, you went St. Andrews last year. Like, how does this compare, right? And like, you were just at Pinehurst. Like, how does this compare? Gosh, that sounds so smug.
I was going to say you've had a nice little stretch.
Listen, I paid full ticket on my own ride to St. Andrews. Okay, like I'm not. Like,
I'm dying to hear the second part of this take when you just dropped that.
I know, but anyways, when you walk around these places that are like historic,
it's nice to be able to give them shit in person, sitting right next to him.
There we go.
And you see, like that's where Cam Smith hit a putt from here around that bunker on 17, or walking up, I think, what is it, 3, 4, like 5 or 6, like that's where like Jordan Spieth was standing over the cliff, and then you're watching and you're like, wow, that was like, he was actually very close to that cliff. Like he's very close to that cliff. And let's be very frank, as everyone says, TV doesn't do it justice. That's a long way down. It is a real drop. Yeah. Like that's a real drop down to that beach. Okay,
you're gonna die at that drop.
Yeah, like I get that. So like when you walk around and see like this is where certain people hit shots. Gary Woodland chipped from over here on 17 to win the U.S. Open, like all this stuff. It's very cool. But from an outs, I don't consider myself an insider in the game of golf, and I know that again that sounds very odd, but like it's so bougie. It when people talk about how golf is not welcoming to people of like, people of color or people that are getting new into the game. As someone who's like seen a lot of golf courses, it feels weird. Like it feels weird walking around because it's like everything's like very expensive, and I don't know like where to go. Like so, I get that feeling a little bit, but so it's like this weird thing where it's like, yeah, I'm here, it's very cool, but like I don't know how to act around some of this stuff because it feels so fancy. But as far as like the golf course is concerned, it's amazing. The practice facility, great. The hay is dope. It is such a cool short course. It is like, I was like, can I go out and play? But they haven't blocked off for volunteers. All the volunteers get to go play as much as they want, which I think is like a great setup. It's such a great setup. So like, it is really fun to see that. But anyways, enough of me like talking about like my own like personal opinions and stuff. But like, as far as gear is concerned, it is a little bit of a slower week naturally, but we are still seeing more players get into SM10. Aaron Dill is working like a madman out there. That man is everywhere. He was in San Diego. You saw him at the Torrey Pines. I see him at the PGA show on
J-Wall didn't see him because J-Wall was in his hotel room the whole time because of the rain again.
I was going to say, I didn't want to regale people with that story. I just, you guys laugh because I was sending you videos from my hotel room in downtown San Diego as I was watching the storm drains start to spew water out the other direction, manhole covers with the water popping out. Anyway, that's my story. But yeah, that Monday was biblical rain in San Diego.
I see him in Orlando. Now I'm here. I'm seeing him again. The man is everywhere. JJ Titleist was working with Wyndham Clark, who still noted TSI player, working into TSR. He knows it's as he said, like he knows it's a faster driver.
He's way behind the curve playing TSI. I mean, it's like, ooh.
So they're working into it. Actually, very funny. Little moment on the range. JJ walked over, and the first drive Webb hit, he probably slowed his swing speed down to like 80 miles an hour and like intentionally topped it. And he goes, "Yeah, this one just isn't working." It's really fun. Like these guys do have a sense of humor out there. But again, a lot of SM10. Titleist guys were busy. Ping guys were out there working with putters. Dylan was out there like grinding with a number of players, just kind of going through some stuff. Titleist guys. We're kind of working with a few players. I got to shoot and talk like a tiny bit with Nick Dunlap. His bag.
That's cool. What's
Yeah,
Dunlap like?
he's
Seems
a
like a
nice guy. He's a tall, lanky kid. That kid, he's got.
How much does he weigh, do you think?
Well, I don't want to say how much I weigh, but
No, how much does he weigh? I didn't ask how
I
much
know, but
you
I'm trying
weigh.
to
I
judge.
felt like
I'm trying to
guessing
judge.
your
He's taller
weight.
than me.
He's a strapping lad. I'm
He's
sure.
a strapping dude. I would say
Yeah.
he's probably close. I would say he's probably close to like 195.
Really?
He's big. He's tall. He's tall.
I know he's tall, but he looks skinny.
But his shoulders
His
are big,
shoulders,
right? Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He seems
All
like a
right.
broad-shouldered dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So one of the reps from True Tepper, Keenan, knows him really well. Although they went to different colleges, that's no other. They bug each other about that stuff. But I got to go up and shoot his bag. Pretty like I don't want to say generic stuff, but like pretty a bag you'd see of a good player. He's got the LS driver from TaylorMade. We did the what's in the bag, the winner's bag on the site. But the one thing which is really interesting, his putter is beat. You don't see it, and I got pictures of it. It's posted on Instagram. It's got a black finished shaft on it. And, I hear amateur golfers all the time. It's like, I don't want to nick things up. I don't want to ding things up. From halfway down the shaft to the head of that golf club, there are chips galore. There is layers of the coating stripped off that shaft. And he's just like, I'm rolling with it, man. Like, he doesn't care. And I think that's kind of funny because, these guys find a golf club and they stick with it. And the putter is a perfect example of it.
Made the 6-footer do.
Made the 6-footer make him. Well, he didn't make himself any money. He made himself 2 years of.
Made himself a pro off of that.
That's true.
So,
That was such a ballsy up and down too.
That was awesome. It was it was so much fun to watch. I don't sit around. I know we didn't talk about it last week because we had the interview, but like I don't sit around and watch a lot of golf. Like I do. Like on Sundays, I'll kind of be like, okay, who's winning? Where's the leader at? And then like check in, and I follow it. Like I very much follow. But we don't talk day to day about the results and shots that we're hitting, all that stuff. So I don't really like sit down all the time. I'm like, not that I'm calling my kids in because they really care, but like we finished dinner and I was like, honey, I'm going to go downstairs and like watch the rest of this golf because this is a big deal. This is history. This has not happened in 30 years. This is really cool to watch. And my kids like coming downstairs and like in the basement where the TV is and watching golf after dinner if it's on. And they're like, was that cool? And I'm like excited. I'm like sitting on the edge of my seat watching this go down. And I said, this putt could change this kid's life, like legitimately change this kid's life. And he made it. Not only did he make it, he poured it right in the middle. And then, 2 weeks later, like this lumpy guy on the range from golf.com is like holding up his putter, taking pictures of it, flipping it over and getting pictures of lead tape on the bottom and all that stuff. So that was cool to see. But he's still one of those guys, like, his first time being out on the whole range. He's like talking to people and like they're showing him putters. He's talking about like what he likes about his putter and stuff. They're just because it's an older model.
Is that the only He's got a couple of non-TaylorMade clubs in the bag, right?
Yeah, he's got a Ping 3-wood and a Strixon utility, ZX utility,
okay,
with the big beastie hazardous 105.
I wonder that feels like a Scotty Scheffler special.
It's very similar. It is like a thing. Like they a lot of guys like that.
You have to tell your Scotty Scheffler story because that's a good one.
So we'll get to yes.
But before we get to that, I do want to say it's going to be interesting to watch Dunlap. Like if he has that kind of sophomore slump, and I know that sounds really weird because he just won a tournament.
I was about to say you just won a damn tournament, G. Give him a minute to slump.
Hear me out. Nobody knew his name going into that tournament. Well, I mean, they knew his name. He won. He was a noted college player, but nobody gave him, any chance of anything higher than maybe a top 25. And the point is now RB is taking pictures of his putter. Like he has a lot of time commitments now that he didn't before. And that requires an intense amount of focus. That requires a really good team to, separate and say, okay, you get X amount of time and then the player stays focused. And that's a lot for a young kid who just like was thrown into this. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm rooting for him and I want him to succeed, but it'll be interesting to see because he's a flat out player. He won a PGA tournament as an amateur. That is amazing. But now he's been thrown in the lion's den. Like, everybody wants a piece of him. Everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants, something from him. And can he maintain that focus while, he gets that kind of exposure? And I think at some point, even if he stumbles a little bit, he'll right the ship just because of his pure talent. But it's just like, it's just so weird. I remember seeing a quote. I was actually down in Palm Springs that weekend, and I remember going online and seeing Justin Thomas saying something about, can't believe that, some college kids competing, on Saturday, and suddenly he wins the thing on Sunday, and it's just a whole new ball game for him. So,
I mean, the guys that he played with on Sunday.
It was nuts.
Couple of decent guys who just played in the Ryder Cup. Justin Thomas.
Yeah.
Sam Burns is right there.
Mhm.
It's man. Anyway, incredibly impressive from Nick Dunlap, but also center shafted putters. RB. I don't want to steal any of your thunder.
Yeah. So two. Well, this will transition to the last kind of thing I saw, but I was watching. So I did watch the last little bit of Torrey on Saturday, and Matthew Pavon. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Pavon.
We do have French Canadians as well, so I'm trying to verse myself. But he uses a center shafted putter, and then I was thinking about it. I said, well, it's not quite a center shaft. I know it's slightly different, but from a visual perspective, it looks center shafted. Grayson Murray won with a lab putter recently, and as I'm walking the range today, I noticed that basically every company, even Scotty Cameron, who has definitely shied away from it, at least on tour. Again, this is a tour part. It's not a part available for retail. Has a center shafted model. Now, PXG didn't have a putter bag out today. I know they've got center shafted models. Odyssey's got center shafted models. Bettinardi's got center shafted models. I took pictures of kind of almost every center shafted model on the green, and I started thinking, I was like, they're kind of making a bit of a comeback. You talk to a lot of high-level fitters, and they don't necessarily like them for average golfers. But if you give these tools to players that are very aware of face angle and alignment and all of those things, I think that's way more important than saying it's not as forgiving or face angle control is more difficult, because you're talking about the best players in the world. So it is an interesting thing to see, and I think that we're going to see a few more players kind of probably maybe looking at them. They do kind of pick them up once in a while. And that goes into the fact that there's a lot of these older, and a lot of the putters now that are center shafted are older, like Pavon's or Mackenzie Hughes, another pin guy. Basically, I think he kind of plays a very, very similar putter with the TR grooves and the whole bit. So I don't know. I think to me it's a trend that I really want to follow, because I can think of a number of years ago people asked, where are the center shafted putters? Where are the center shafted putters? And they're starting to kind of filter back out again. I think OEMs are hearing that. I think some players have gravitated toward it, even just from an alignment perspective. So that is something that I want to follow. But as far as putters is concerned, and this was the big one today, I got a lot of pictures. I'm trying to figure out how I want to share this story from a written perspective. It's not something that's really super easy to digest. But Scotty Scheffler was out there today. Logan Olson from Olson Manufacturing. Now look, they have not announced anything official. But if we are going to play detective, this is all open information. Okay. He has worked with a lot of TaylorMade players so far. Ellie Corda is one of them. Scotty Scheffler, obviously, people have talked about it a lot.
Corda's not playing the putter anymore, though. I mean,
they showed her testing and all that stuff. Yeah, that is
she's
very
back.
true.
She's back to a Cameron for those that are curious.
And just won recently over in that playoff on the LPGA event, on the LPGA Tour recent event. But he's out there and he's working with the team. So, anyways, open information. If you get a newsletter from Logan Olson, it says the address, and the address is TaylorMade's head office address now. So look, you guys connect the dots. All right, it's out there. This is public information.
Oh yeah, my buddy bought one of the first batch, the number one batch that just came out recently, and he had mentioned that he had reached out to ask a question, and he was directed to a TaylorMade email address.
So anyway,
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly like you said, connect the dots.
So he's out there. He waited around. I talked to him for a little bit during the day, and just like talked about how he got into putter making, just like where you got into like getting into this stuff. And then he's got some putters under some head covers. I could not look at them. I respected the fact that he would not let me look at them at the time, and that was cool. But he was.
He should at least let you look at them. I mean, you're not going to take pictures, but
I looked. Okay, I looked, but I didn't take pictures. Let's put it that way.
Okay, good. All right, so you saw them.
I saw them.
Good.
And then he worked. Scotty comes down to the putting green. He's got the whole entourage. He's got Ted Scott carrying the bag, fishing golf balls out of the hole. He's got Adrian from TaylorMade. There's a social media guy there. They got Logan Olson there with like five putters, including the one that like Scotty's gamer. And then Phil Kenya's kicking around too.
Was Scotty testing?
He was testing. And it looked like they did not convey information, but I was within 15, 20 feet of them.
He won a damn tournament with that new Olsen putter.
He was conveying feel, talking about sound. This one feels heavier. This one feels softer.
So maybe feedback on some other stuff that might
talking about MOI, talking about alignment. And what was really neat, and this is something that I think I could probably approach. I got some really they're not like grainy pictures, but they're zoomed in pictures because I could not get in to like take pictures of it stuff. But they were using dry erase marker to see where he was hitting it on the putter face. Now, on a personal note, he is down a rabbit hole that I am uncomfortable with. But it is very interesting to hear his feedback talking to this because Logan is giving his feedback on what goes into making a putter, what goes into like, changing these different design elements of putters, the alignment. But there's a lot going on here, man. Like in my head, I'm like, all these other players, there are a lot of players on tour. John Rahm, week before the, Ryder Cup, they hand him a putter and they go, John, this is the AI putter from Odyssey. Like, what do you think? It's the same shape that you always use. And he goes out there, putts freaking lights out, is the star of the show, and he doesn't think twice about switching this putter. And Scotty's out there. He's got 5 guys around him trying to figure out this stuff. I'm like, man, you need to just like, I'm sure a lot of people have the same opinion. You need to get out. You need to chill. You need to get out of your own head. Just go back to that party you won the Masters with and go have some fun. But it was very interesting to watch that process. I will share some pictures about like kind of that what was going on. But it's very interesting. I think the reason is, again, inside industry, but like no knowledge is like TaylorMade's head of product for putters had recently retired. And I think they're looking for someone to really be a liaison with the tour players. And Logan is that guy. He knows the ins and outs of manufacturing. He knows the ins and outs of talking to people. I watched him communicate. He's a very good communicator. Talked to him today.
Bucky does a good job.
And listen, Bucky does a really good job. But what Bucky does is he focuses a lot on spider. Yeah. That man knows the ins and outs of working those damn spider putters. Yeah. Insane. Like they don't even really carry the TP Reserve putters out on tour because so many guys love the spider that it's harder to kind of work with guys with it.
And they're testing out different inserts now too.
Yeah, like they've got Bucky's out there working his butt off, and he's he knows the ins and outs of those spider putters so much. But I think for players who are looking for the other option, that's where Logan comes in. And for Scheffler, who is the big TaylorMade guy other than Rory, they're trying to help him out. They're trying to figure this out.
What about the big guy who sits out there?
What do you mean?
Tiger?
Well, there's Tiger, but Tiger's got a Scotty. He's not changing that.
I know.
Scotty's driving around in some truck fixing it in the back of a parking lot when he won the Buick 20 years ago, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. But anyways, it is. It's like watching some of these guys go through equipment, like physically dive into the ins and outs. Some guys pick stuff up, love it, and don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Other guys like Scotty, watch him go through that process. It's as fascinating as like an outside observer as it is as a golfer. I'm like, man, if he was my buddy, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna be like, listen, dude, we got to go out there. We're gonna forget about all this stuff. We're just gonna have some fun and hit.
We're gonna have an intervention.
We're gonna have an intervention. But
it's time. It's 100% time for them.
But to watch the process is fascinating because as a guy who builds putters, he's like,
Yeah.
he's kind of like he's like psychologist, right? Like, what are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Like, it's deep in the weeds, man. That's deep, deep.
You can get very deep in the weeds at the putter. Gene's about to ready to fall asleep. So why don't we wrap this pod up?
No. I'm awake. I'm doing all right.
Okay.
But we have covered a lot.
I was going to say we have covered a lot. Did we cover the AMs before we wrap this pod?
No, we haven't. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of like old gear kicking around in bags, and I love it because these guys. No offense, it costs like $80,000 to play on this thing. These guys aren't lacking money. These guys aren't lacking status.
Is that
these
really
guys
what it cost? It costs $80,000 to play in the Pro-Am?
Yeah, I think it was like last year. First of all, you have to be invited.
Well, yeah.
It's like if you
have to get a spot to be able to earn the right to pay $80,000.
Well, but I thought and I'm going to probably stumble on this, but they got rid of all the celebrities, the ones that, they got rid of the Bill Murrays, the Ray Romanos, and they wanted to go more athlete focused.
Yeah.
I saw Pau Gasol playing with Colin Morikawa.
Yeah. And I've seen Pau out here before. He's not a good golfer. Great basketball player, not a good golfer.
He rolled in a decent putt today.
But like, were you seeing like the tech icons and
I think I saw some tech guys. Josh Allen was out here.
Josh Allen's been out here a lot.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to be out here. He wishes he was playing the Super Bowl, but that's another story.
But no, it was like it's like people are building clubs for him. Like Josh Allen, like pretty good golfer. Like there is, from a celebrity perspective, there's a lot of guys who like and it's kind of one of those things we talk about all the time. And you mentioned it right off the top when we talked about equipment is there are people who are just not tuned in, and they're just like hoping that the person who's like communicating with them is going to help them find gear, right? And again, I'm seeing golf bags from like the top private clubs all around the United States, and like some logos I gotta look up. Like that's where I'm at here. All right, but to watch these guys work on the range, like it's still interesting because like some of the OEMs are talking to them, and do you need anything? Do you want to try anything? And, some guys are seeing stuff that does work better. And I think it just goes to show that, even people who play some of the nicest golf courses in the world and get access to all kinds of stuff, like they're still looking for an edge, right? And they still don't know where to look. They might be the golf is the equalizer, right? It's not like a celebrity basketball game where someone, like if I go to, do a layup on LeBron James, I'm going to get smoked, right? But if we're playing a par 3 course, like we're on equal ground, right? Like we all have the equal playing field when it comes to the game of golf because no one's trying to tackle us. It's us against the elements. It's us against the course. And on that level, I think it is this like interesting perspective where you're watching people who have access to lots of stuff and they're still learning about the game because they, like everyone else, wants to improve on it. And they're grinding. I think one of the greatest benefits of this tournament, if you are someone who is lucky to play in it, and I realize I'm talking to so many people in this Pro-Am, and probably none of them listen to this, is that they get free rain at Pebble. Like it's Tuesday afternoon. There's no practice around. The pros are going out. They're doing their little bit, and I just watch a pro walk up, or not a pro, an AM walk up and say, "Oh, is there room to go out now?" And they're just out there with their significant other and their caddy and whoever, and they're walking around like, "Look, the tournament's cool, but like I got Pebble to myself. There's no marshal up my butt telling me to play faster." That's the coolest part of this whole bit. I don't want to be on TV on Saturday or Friday or whatever. I want to be out here with like my friends and family walking around this private piece of property. That's just like the coolest thing. But they're grinding. They're out there working real hard, and I think it's kind of fun. They want to play good. I know we talked about, there was an article on golf.com, 2 top tips for people who are playing in Pro-Ams, and they're good ones. Like I think one of them was play faster and, just have fun because you got to enjoy it. It's a pretty cool experience to be able to do that. And here to be able to do it, I think is even cooler.
Yeah. It's a good place to wrap. Episode 226 fully equipped. Gene and RB get to spend a few more days at Pebble.
Until it's gonna rain tomorrow.
They're canceling the practice round tomorrow. We have what's called the Pineapple Express coming through, and it's going to be like biblical rain tomorrow.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, so
good.
they can't. Well, they've canceled for the public. Yeah,
Enjoy the rain, boys.
Yeah.
it's going to be messy. It's going to be like San Diego Part 2, only
Oh man, I heard the back end. I was talking to the guys at Torrey on Tuesday. Once the rain had subsided, we didn't realize we were going to have to break out an arc. But yeah, they were saying that the back end of the week at Pebble was supposed to be pretty dicey. So
yeah.
hopefully they get in all 4 rounds, because I've seen way too many Pebble events where it was a shortened 54. That's never fun. Nobody wants to see a slog out there. RB, before again, I said we're going to wrap it. I did forget to ask you this. Did you go take a peek at Cyprus?
No, I didn't. No,
Dude.
I haven't had a chance. I've been so busy. I haven't had a chance.
And it's gonna be biblical tomorrow. You should really, if you can,
sneak out. No one will be over.
You got to go to that spot.
You just got to drive by. It was
there's a parking lot right there. Just park.
Yeah,
and you can just
parking lot. You can look over the fence. Believe it or not, in
yes.
And so it was funny. My brother and I, we played Pacific Grove, and I said, let's go have a drink at the inn at Spanish Bay. And 17 Mile Drive, they said, oh, by the way, everything's closed, because of the tournament. You can't go. Well, of course, everything wasn't. But just if anybody's in this neck of the woods on 17 Mile Drive, the bunkering at Cypress it's such an interesting golf course, because there's so many holes that are right off of 17 Mile Drive that you can see. But the bunkering is some of the most interesting bunkering I've seen on a golf course. And it's just, but
have you played, you played Cypress, right, Gene?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No,
yes, I'm the only one on this podcast.
Have you? So you played it, huh?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I told RB where the spot was that he needs to go. There is a and it's like, I don't want to just like, again, this podcast isn't that big, so like, who really cares? And I mean, you'd have to make a trip to Cyprus to actually experience it.
You got to pay $12 to drive 17 miles.
But there's if you are in the area off a 17 mile drive, there is an outlook for Fan Shell Beach. Okay, and it's just off 14 before you cross the street to go to 15.
Yep.
And you can park there. And I mean, seriously, all it is just a metal railing right there between you and Cypress, you and the 14th hole at Cypress. And there are some gnarly trees on that hole. It's a par 4. And I mean, you could hang out there seriously, the walk to 15 is like a stone's throw away.
Yeah. No, it's
roll the dice, if there's somebody there, just go.
You're not encouraging trespassing?
Well,
we're not. We're 100% not encouraging trespassing.
Disclaimer?
Although I've heard plenty of stories. They shut the golf course down one day a year. I think it was Thanksgiving, or was it Christmas? Anyway, one of them. And I had to talk to a couple of guys that said that they started having to get security because people that day would just start trying to go to 15 and 16 to hit shots. Yeah.
Well, it's
mostly 16, but 15 is a very underrated par 3.
What's so interesting is when you drive by the entrance, there's no security gate.
Nothing. Nope.
It just says Cypress private golf course, members only.
Stay the hell out.
It.
Yeah.
It's a very understated clubhouse. Yeah.
It's my favorite. That and Pine Valley.
And this is from a humble brag that's played Augusta too. So
I have played the trifecta, but yeah, Cypress for me, man. It was.
Have you played Pine Valley?
I have. I played Pine Valley.
Oh, I hate you. I really hate you.
Like I said, I'm the outside. I'm an outsider.
I've played. I'm one of the lucky few that has played the trifecta.
Wow.
And consider myself incredibly grateful to have done it. But Cypress was amazing. The whole day, like Chamber Commerce Day, weather could not have been better. The company that I had for the round, like the best. We had so many laughs. It was just a cool day, cool experience. But the golf course, it lived up to it and more. And I can't say that about every golf course that I've been super excited to play, but definitely Cypress. Again, that's the end of my humble brag. Let's wrap the pod. That'll do it for episode 226 Fully Equipped. As always, check us out on our social channels. We are at fully_equipped on Twitter. I will not call it X. And we are at Fully Equipped Golf on our new YouTube page and also on Instagram. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next week.